Every great startup story starts with a collaboration. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, all of them were great partners. But what about the story of Facebook? A great idea, but also a story of broken partnership and a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Now, most co-founders' disputes don't end up in a movie like Facebook, but they do end the startup. Every single day, and almost all of them could have been prevented by one single document that most co-founders are too optimistic or too busy or too scared to create. Now today we'll be talking about that document. In law, we call it the Founders Agreement. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Startup Blueprint, your legal guide for building a business in India. In our last video, we have checked if your idea was legal or not. Now, if you missed that, you can go to the description link below and check that video. Today, we take the most important step before you register your company. We are going to build the rule book for your relationship with your other founders. This isn't about mistrust. It's about creating clarity when things are in a good shape, so that you have a map for when things are little tough. Now, what is a founders agreement? Think of it as a prenup for your business. It is a simple contract between you and your co-founders that answers all the tough what if questions before they become problems or issues. Let's break down the 4 most critical parts of this document. Now, this is the first big conversation that you're going to have with your founders, co-founders. How do you split the ownership? An equal split 50-50 sounds good, but it isn't always the right choice. You need to consider a few other things also. Now, for example, who is putting the money, the capital? Who is quitting their job to work full-time, the sweat equity? Who brings the critical experience or the industry connections, and who is building the actual product. Now, there are no magic formulas for this, but the key is to have an open conversations and justify the numbers that you're going to decide. Write down not just the final percentage, but why you decided the split. For example, founder A gets 60% for providing the initial capital of, let's say, 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs. And founder B gets 40% for building the entire tech platform. The second biggest cause of conflict is confusion over roles. At the start, everyone does everything. But what you need to do is to define primary roles. Who is the CEO, the final decision maker? Who is in charge of tech, who is in charge of handling marketing and sales, like that. Now, you don't need a 10-page job description. A few bullet points for each founder will do. This prevents a situation where 2 people think that they are in charge of the same thing, or worse, nobody is in charge of a critical task. So it's better to put things together in one document. Now, listen closely. If you remember only one thing from this video, make it this: vesting. Let's say you and your co-founder agree on a 50-50 split. 3 months later, your co-founder decides that this isn't for them and leaves. Without vesting, they could walk away with a 50% of your company's shares for just 3 months of work. And trust me, your startup is literally dead now. No investor will touch a company where half of the ownership is held by someone who isn't even there. So, vesting prevents this kind of a situation. It simply means you don't get all your shares on day one. You have to earn them over time. A typical vesting schedule is 4 years with a 1-year cliff. Here is how it works. The 1-year cliff means you get 0% of your shares for the first year. If you leave before the first anniversary, you walk away with nothing. It is a kind of a trial period. Now, after you complete 1 year, you get the first 25% of your share. then the next 3 years, you earn the rest of the shares every month. This ensures that everyone is committed to the long partnership. It is the single most important clause to protect your startup. Finally, you need a plan for the exit. What happens if a founder wants to leave after their shares have vested? Or worse, if a founder has passed away? Your agreement should definitely cover. A key concept here is right of first refusal, or we call it ROFR. In simple terms, it means that if a founder wants to sell their shares, they must offer them to other co-founders or to the company first before the founder who is exiting can sell it to an outsider. This helps you keep the control of your company and prevents a stranger from suddenly becoming a new partner. So to recap, the 4 pillars of a strong founders agreement is 1. Equity. Decide who gets what percentage and why. Roles. Define who is in charge of what. Vesting. This is the most important. Make sure everyone earns their shares over time. Exit. Plan for what happens when someone leaves. So this isn't about being negative. It's about being professional. Best time to have this conversation is now when you are all excited and aligned to do a business startup. So now that you have a plan for your partnership, what's next? It's the time to make it official. In our next video, we will be diving into private limited, LLP or a one-person company. And I'll explain why choosing the wrong one can cost you lakhs of rupees down the line. Trust me, you do not want to miss it.